Hello and welcome back to the reading of the Holy Bible. Today we will be reading, starting with the book of Judges actually, and reading chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't know if I've done this part, but we will be reading the little extra parts beforehand as well. The book of Judges. This book is so called because it is a history of the Jews under the government of the judges, men like Gideon and Samson, who were raised up to rule Israel before they had kings. It describes the religious and political condition of the Jews in the work of the 12 judges. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Judah and Simeon fight the Canaanites. After the death of Joshua, the children of Israel consulted the Lord, saying, "Who shall go up before us against the Canaanite, and shall be the leader of the war?" And the Lord said, "Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hands." And Judah said to Simeon, his brother, "Come up with me into my lot, and fight against the Canaanite, that I also may go along with thee into thy lot." And Simeon went with him. Punishment of Adoni-Bezek. And Judah went up, and the Lord delivered the Canaanite and the Perizzite into their hands. And they slew of them in Bezek 10,000 men. And they found Adon-Bezek and Bezek, and fought against him. And they defeated the Canaanite, and the Perizzite, and Adoni-Bezek fled, and they pursued after him and took him, and cut off his fingers and toes. And Adon-Bezek said, 70 kings having their fingers and toes cut off, gathered up the leavings of the meat under my table, as I have done, so hath God requited me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. Attacks on Jerusalem, Hebron and Debir. And the children of Judah, besieging Jerusalem, took it, and put it to the sword, and set the whole city on fire. Verse 8 clarification. Jerusalem. This city was divided into two parts. One part was called Jebus, the other Solom. The one was in the tribe of Judah, the other in the tribe of Benjamin. After it had been taken and burnt by the men of Judah, it was quickly rebuilt again by the Jebusites, as we may gather from verse 21, and continued in their possession until it was taken by King David. Resuming with verse 9. And afterwards they went down and fought against the Canaanite, who dwelt in the mountains, and in the south, And afterwards they went down and fought against the Canaanite, who dwelt in the mountains, and in the south and in the plains. And Judah, going forward against the Canaanite that dwelt in Hebron, the name whereof was in former times Kiriath-arb, Susai, and Ahaman, and Tolmai. Verse 10 clarification. Hebron. This expedition against Hebron, etc., is the same as is related in Joshua, chapter 15, verse 14. Resuming with verse 11. And departing from thence, he went to the inhabitants of Debir, the ancient name of which was Kareth-Sefer, that is, the city of letters. Verse 11 clarification. The city of letters, perhaps so called from some famous school or library kept there. Othniel won Achsah as his wife. And Caleb said, "He that shall take Kiriath-Sefer and lay it waste to him, and I give my daughter, Achsah, to wife." And Othniel, the son of Senez, the younger brother of Caleb, having taken it, he gave him Achsah, his daughter, to wife. And as she was going on her way, her husband admonished her to ask a field of her father. And as she sighed, sitting on her ass, Caleb said to her, "What aileth thee?" But she answered, "Give me a blessing, for thou hast given me a dry land. Give me also a watery land." So Caleb gave her the upper and the nether watery ground. And the children of the Sinite, the kinsmen of Moses, went up from the city of palms, with the children of Judah, into the wilderness of his lot, which was at the south side of Arad, and they dwelt with him. Verse 16 clarification. The Sinites. Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, was called Sineos, or the Sinite, and his children, who came along with the children of Israel, settled themselves among them in the land of Canaan, embracing their worship and religion. The city of palms. Jericho, so called from the abundance of palm trees. Resuming with verse 14. More cities captured. And Judah went with Simeon, his brother, and they together defeated the Canaanites, and dwelt in Saphoth, and slew them. And the name of the city was called Hormah, and it is anathema. And Judah took Gaza with the confines, and Ascalon and Ascaron with their confines. Verse 18 clarification. Gaza, Ascalon, Akron. These were three of the principal cities of the Philistines, famous both in sacred and profane history. They were taken at this time by the Israelites, But as they took no care to put garrisons in them, the Philistines soon recovered them. Resuming with verse 19. And the Lord was with Judah, and he possessed the hill country, but was not able to destroy the inhabitants of the valley, because they had many chariots armed with scythes. Hebron given to Caleb. And they gave Hebron to Caleb, as Moses had said, who destroyed it out of the 3 sons of Anak. Jebusites not annihilated. But the sons of Benjamin did not destroy the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, and the Jebusites hath dwelt with the sons of Benjamin in Jerusalem until this present day. Verse 19, clarification, as I forgot to discuss this. Verse 19, was not able, through a cowardly fear of their chariots, and for want of confidence in God. Resuming with verse 22, capture of Bethel. The house of Joseph also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with him. For when they were besieging the city, which before was called Luzah, they saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, Show us the entrance into the city, and we will show thee mercy. And when he had shown them, they smote the city with the edge of the sword. But that man and all his kindred they let go, who being sent away went into the land of Hetham, and built there a city, and called it Luzah, which is so called until this day. Canaanites became tributaries. Manasseh also did not destroy Bethsan and Tanakh with their villages, nor the inhabitants of Dor and Jebalam and Megiddo with their villages, and the Canaanite began to dwell with them. But after Israel was grown strong, he made them tributaries. It would not destroy them. Ephraim also did not slay the Canaanite that dwelt in Gezer, but dwelt with him. Zabulon destroyed not the inhabitants of Setron and Naalol, but the Canaanite dwelt among them, and became their tributaries. Aser also destroyed not the inhabitants of Akko, and of Sidon, of Alhalab, and of Achazib, and of Helba, and of Aphek, and of Rohab, and he dwelt in the midst of the Canaanite, the inhabitants of that land, and did not slay them. Naphtali also destroyed not the inhabitants of Bethsemes and of Bethanath, and he dwelt in the midst of the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, and the Bethsemites and Bethanites were tributaries to him. Danites forced into the mountains, and the Amorite straitened the children of Dan in the mountain, and gave them not place to go down to the plain. And he dwelt in the mountain Heres, and that is, of potsherds, in Elon and Salabim. And the hand of the house of Joseph was heavy upon him, and he became a tributary to him. Verse 35 clarification. He dwelt. An example, the Amorite, resuming with verse 36. And the border of the Amorite was from the ascent of the scorpion, the rock, and the higher places. Chapter 2. An angel reproves the Israelites. And an angel of the Lord went up from Galgal to the place of weepers, and said, I made you go out of Egypt, and have brought you into the land for which I swore to your fathers, and I promised that I would not make void any covenant with you forever, on condition that you should not make a league with the inhabitants of this land, but should throw down their altars, and you would not hear my voice. Why have you done this? Chapter 2, verse 1, clarification. An angel, taking the shape of a man, resuming with verse 3, as verse 1 and verse 2 were interconnected, so I did not want to interrupt. Wherefore I would not destroy them from before your face, that you may have enemies, and their gods may be your ruin. And when the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the children of Israel, they lifted up their voice and wept. And the name of that place was called the place of weepers, or of tears, and there they offered sacrifices to the Lord. Death and burial of Josue. And Josue sent away the people, and the children of Israel went every one to his own possession to hold it. And they served the Lord. Before we get to verse 7, I apologize. Verse 6, clarification. And Josue, this is here inserted out of Josue 24, by way of recapitulation of what had happened before, and by way of an introduction to that which follows. Resuming with verse 7. And they served the Lord all his days, in the days of the ancients, that lived a long time after him, and who knew all the works of the Lord, which he had done for Israel. And Josue, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old, and they buried him in the borders of his possession in Thamnath-Sarai in Mount Ephraim, on the north side of Mount Gath. Wickedness of the new generation. And all the generation was gathered to their fathers, and there arose others that knew not the Lord, and the works which he had done for Israel. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they served Balaam. Verse 12, clarification before verse 12. They followed strange gods. What is here said of the children of Israel into their failing so often What is here said of the children of Israel as to their failing so often into idolatry is to be understood of a great part of them. but not so universally that the true worship of God was ever quite abolished among them. For the succession of the true church and the religion was kept all this time, by the priests and Levites, at least in the house of God in Shiloh. Resuming with verse 12. And they left the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the lands of Egypt. And they followed strange gods, and the gods of the people that dwelt round about them, that they adored them, and they provoked the Lord to anger, forsaking him and serving Baal and Ashtaroth. The Lord punishes the people, and the Lord, being angry against Israel, delivered them into the hands of plunderers, who took them and sold them to their own enemies that dwelt round about. Neither could they stand against their enemies, but whithersoever they meant to go, the hand of the Lord was upon them, as he had said, and as he had sworn to them, and they were greatly distressed. The Lord provides judges for the people, and the Lord raised up judges to deliver them from the And the Lord raised up judges to deliver them from the hands of those that oppressed them, but they would not hearken to them. Committing fornication with strange gods and adoring them, they quickly forsook the way in which their fathers had walked. And hearing the commandments of the Lord, they did all things contrary. And when the Lord raised them up judges in their days, he was moved to mercy, and heard the groanings of the afflicted, and delivered them from the slaughter of the oppressors. But after the judge was dead, they returned and did much worse things than their fathers had done, following strange gods, serving them and adoring them. They left not their own inventions in the stubborn way by which they were accustomed to walk. Other nations left to try Israel, and the wrath of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And he said, Behold, this nation hath made void my covenant, which I had made with their fathers, and hath despised to hearken to my voice. I also will not destroy the nations which Joshua left, when he died. Yet through them I may try Israel, whether they will keep the way of the Lord, and walk in it as their fathers kept it or not. The Lord therefore left all these nations, and would not quickly destroy them, neither did he deliver them into the hands of Joshua. Chapter 3. List of the nations left to try Israel. These are the nations which the Lord left, that by them he might instruct Israel, in all that had known. Let's resume. Chapter 3. List of the nations left to try Israel. These are the nations which the Lord left, that by them he might instruct Israel, in all that had not known the wars of the Canaanites, that afterwards their children might learn to fight with their enemies, and to be trained up to war. The 5 princes of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites that dwelt in Mount Libanus, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entering into Emeth. And he left them, that he might try Israel by them, whether they would hear the commandments of the Lord, which he had commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses, or not. So the children of Israel dwelt in the midst of the Canaanite, and the Hethite, and the Amorite, and the Pharisite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. And they took their daughters to wives, and they gave their own daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. Israel punished for idolatry. And they did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they forgot their God, and served Baalim and Ashtaroth. And the Lord, being angry with Israel, delivered them into the hands of Chushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, and they served him 8 years. Verse 8 clarification. Mesopotamia. It lies between the Euphrates and the Tigris. It is also called Syria. Resuming with verse 9. Othniel serves Israel. Othniel saves Israel. And they cried to the Lord, who raised them up a Savior, and delivered them, to wit, Othniel, the son of Sinez, the younger brother of Caleb. And the Spirit of the Lord was in him, and he judged Israel. And he went out to fight, and the Lord delivered into his hands Chushan-Rishathaim, king of Syria, and he overthrew him. And the land rested 40 years, and Othniel, the son of Sinez, died. Israel again punished by God. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, who strengthened against them Eglon, king of Moab, because they did evil in his sight. And he joined to him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and he went and overthrew Israel and possessed the city of palm trees. Ahad slays Eglon. And the children of Israel served Eglon, king of Moab, 18 years. And afterwards they cried to the Lord, who raised them up a Savior called Ahad, the son of Gera, the son of Gemini, who used the left hand as well as the right. And the children of Israel sent presents to Eglon, king of Moab, by him. And he made himself a 2-edged sword, with a haft in the midst of the length of the palm of the hand. and was girded therewith under the garment of his right on the right thigh. And he presented the gifts to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Eglon was exceeding fat, and when he had presented the gifts unto him, he followed those companions that came along with him. Then returning from Galgal, where the idols were, he said to the king, I have a secret message to thee, O king. And he commanded silence, and all being gone out that were about him, and went into him. Now he was sitting in a summer parlor alone, and he said, I have a word from God to thee. And he forthwith rose up from his throne, and Ahab put forth his left hand and took the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into his belly, with such force that the hand went in after the blade into the wound, and was closed up with the abundance of fat, so that he did not draw out the dagger, but left it in his body as he had struck it in. And forthwith by the secret parts of nature the excrements of the belly came out. Verse 20, clarification. A word from God. Ahab, who was judge and chief magistrate of Israel, on this occasion acted by a special inspiration of God, but such things are not to be imitated by private men. Resuming with verse 23, Ahab escapes. But Ahab, carefully shutting the doors of the parlor and locking them, went out by a postern door. And the king's servants going in saw the doors of the parlor shut, and said, Perhaps he is easing nature in his summer parlor. And waiting a long time till they were shamed, and seeing that no man opened the door, they took a key, and opening, they found their lord lying dead on the ground. But Ahab, while they were in confusion, escaped, and then passed by the place of the idols, from whence he had returned, and he came to Seroth. Ahab leads Israel against Moab. And forthwith he sounded the trumpet in Mount Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him, he himself going in the front. And he said to them, Follow me, for the Lord hath delivered our enemies, the Moabites, into our hands. They went down after him, and seized upon the fords of the Jordan, which are in the way to Moab, and they suffered no man to pass over. But they slew of the Moabites at that time about 10,000, all strong and valiant men. None of them could escape, and Moab was humbled that day under the hand of Israel, and the land rested 80 years. Samgar defends Israel. After him was Samgar, the son of Anath, who slew of the Philistines 600 men with a plowshare, and he also defended Israel. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Jabin oppresses the Israelites. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord after the death of Ahab. And the Lord delivered them up into the hands of Jabin, king of Chanaan, who reigned in Asor. And he had a general of his army named Sisera, and he dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. And the children of Israel cried to the Lord, for he had 900 chariots set with lights, and for 20 years had grievously oppressed them. Conspiracy of Deborah and Barak. And there was at that time Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, who judged the people, and she sat under a palm tree, which was called by her name, between Ramah and Bethel, and Mount Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for all judgment. And she sent and called Barak, the son of Abinoam, out of Siddas in Naphtali. And she said to him, The Lord God of Israel hath commanded thee, Go and lead an army to Mount Tabor, and thou shalt take with thee the 10,000 fighting men of the children of Naphtali, and of the children of Zabulon, and I will bring unto thee in the place of the torrent Sison Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, and his chariots, and all his multitude, and will deliver them into thy hand. And Barak said to her, If thou wilt come with me, I will go. If thou wilt not come with me, I will not go. She said to him, I will go indeed with thee, but at this time the victory shall not be attributed to thee, because Sisera shall be delivered into the hand of a woman. Deborah therefore arose and went with Barak to Siddas. And he called unto him Zabulon and Naphtali, and went up with 10,000 fighting men, having Deborah in his company. Barak destroys the army of Sisera. Now Heber, the Sinite, had some time before departed from the rest of the Sinites, his brethren, the sons of Hobab, the kinsman of Moses, and had pitched his tents unto the valley, which is called Senim, and was near Siddas. And it was told Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, was gone up to Mount Tabor, and he gathered together his 900 chariots armed with scythes, and all his army from Harosheth of the Gentiles to the torrent Sison. And Deborah said to Barak, Arise, for this is the day wherein the Lord hath delivered Sisera into thy hands. Behold, he is thy leader. And Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 fighting men with him. And the Lord struck a terror into Sisera, and all his chariots, and all his multitude, with the edge of the sword, at the sight of Barak, insomuch that Sisera, leaping down from off his chariot, fled away on foot, and Barak pursued after the fleeing chariots and the army unto Harosheth of the Gentiles, and all the multitude of the enemies was utterly destroyed. Jael kills Sisera. But Sisera, fleeing, came to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Sinite, for there was peace between Jabin the king of Asshur and the house of Heber the Sinite. And Jael went forth to meet Sisera, and said to him, Come in to me, my lord, come in, fear not. He went into her tent, and being covered by her with a cloak, said to her, Give me, I beseech thee, a little water, for I am very thirsty. She opened a bottle of milk, and gave him to drink, and covered him. And Sisera said to her, Stand before the door of the tent, when any shall come and inquire of thee, saying, Is there any man here? Thou shalt say, There is none. So Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent, and taking also a hammer, and going in softly and with silence, she put the nail upon the temples of his head. Striking with the hammer, drove it through his brain, fastened to the ground, and so passing from deep sleep to death, he fainted away and died. And behold, Barak came pursuing after Sisera. Jael went out to meet him, and said to him, Come, and I will show thee the man whom thou seekest. When he came into her tent, he saw Sisera lying dead, with a nail fastened in his temples. The Israelites destroyed Jabin. So God that day humbled Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the children of Israel, who grew daily stronger, and with a mighty hand overpowered Jabin, king of Canaan, till they quite destroyed him. And that was chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Judges. Join me next week as we continue on with the book of Judges, as we read chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. Thank you very much for watching today and joining me. You make sure that you all happen to have a wonderful week, and God bless.